The night was cold, and silence wrapped the small wooden house like a blanket. The human man, Daniel, sat by the fire, listening to the faint crackle of burning wood. It was a lonely night like many others, but something strange was about to happen. Suddenly he heard it, a faint cry. It was not the cry of an animal, nor the cry of a human child. It was thin, broken, and weak, a sound full of hunger and fear. Daniel froze, his heart beating faster. He stood, wondering if it was just his imagination, but then he heard it again, clearer, sharper, coming from just outside his door. Slowly, Daniel walked to the door. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. He lived alone, far from the city, and no visitor ever came this late. Who could it be? He opened the door and his eyes widened. There on the ground lay a small bundle of cloth shaking with movement inside. Daniel bent down, carefully pulling the fabric open. Inside was a child, not human. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes too, large for her tiny face, glowing faintly even in the dark. Her body was thin, bones almost visible beneath the fragile skin. She looked so weak, so close to breaking. Daniel's breath caught. This was no ordinary child. This was an alien child, abandoned at his very door. He looked left and right, hoping to see someone else, perhaps the parents hiding in the shadows. But there was nothing. Only silence. Only the cold night. The child whimpered softly, her small hand clutching his sleeve as if begging him not to leave. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had seen war, famine, and loss before, but never had he seen such helplessness right at his doorstep. He picked her up, feeling how light she was, as if she had not eaten for days. Her head rested weakly against his shoulder. Daniel whispered, "Who left you here?" But of course there was no answer. As he carried her inside, his eyes caught something on the ground, a faint glowing mark, like a handprint, pressed into the dirt near the door. It was larger, belonging to someone older. The print glowed faintly, then faded into nothingness. Daniel realized at once. Someone had left this child here and then disappeared into the night. Inside the house, the warmth of the fire lit the small room. Daniel laid the child on a blanket. She shivered, curling into herself. Her large alien eyes looked at him, full of fear yet also trust. Daniel quickly searched his kitchen, finding a small piece of bread and a bowl of warm milk. He held the bread near her lips. She hesitated, then opened her mouth, nibbling slowly, as if each bite was a struggle. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. What kind of world would starve a child like this? He could not understand. He stroked her hair gently, promising himself he would not let her suffer again, but even as he comforted, her questions filled his mind. Who was her mother? Why abandon her here? And what danger still lurked outside? He could still feel the weight of those glowing marks in the dirt. They were not human. They carried a sadness, a desperation, a choice made in pain. The child whispered something. Her voice was broken, her words strange, but Daniel could understand a little. Mama, gone, hungry. That was all she could say before her eyes closed in exhaustion. Daniel sat beside her, unable to look away. He had not chosen this, yet fate had placed this fragile life in his hands. The firelight flickered across the room, shadows dancing like restless spirits on the walls. Outside, the forest groaned with wind, hiding secrets he could not yet see. Somewhere in the darkness, he felt certain, a mother watched. Perhaps she had no choice. Perhaps she believed a human's door was safer than her own arms, but why? Why him? Daniel looked at the child again, sleeping now with crumbs still on her lips. He felt a strange fire burn in his chest. Not fear, but determination. Whatever the reason, he could not turn away. He could not let her die. The night stretched, long, but the silence was no longer empty. In that silence, Daniel knew his life had changed. A starving alien child had come to his door, and with her, a mystery that would lead him to face dangers he had never imagined. And deep in the shadows, Beyond the house, unseen eyes glowed faintly, watching him, waiting. The night passed slowly, and Daniel did not sleep. Every time the fire grew low, he added more wood, keeping the room warm for the fragile alien child curled under his blanket. She slept restlessly, sometimes whimpering as if trapped in dark dreams, but she did not wake. Daniel sat nearby, his eyes heavy but his mind sharp. He could not forget the glowing mark on the dirt outside his door. Someone had placed that child there, someone with hands trembling in sorrow and fear. A mother, most likely, but why abandon her own baby? The question burned inside him. At dawn, when pale light touched the forest outside, Daniel stepped out quietly. He needed answers. The air was cold, carrying the smell of damp leaves. The world felt strangely silent, as if it held its breath. There, on the ground, faint but still visible, were glowing tracks. They were not like footprints he had ever seen. Each one shimmered faintly, as though the earth itself remembered the steps. They led away from his door and into the dark forest. Daniel hesitated. He had no weapon, no plan, only a strong pull to follow. He walked slowly, careful not to break the quiet. The tracks curved between tall trees, vanishing and reappearing with the morning light. After some distance, he stopped, his breath caught. For a moment he thought he saw her. Between two trees stood a figure, tall and thin, a woman, her form fragile like a shadow made of silver light. Her skin glowed faintly, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. She was no child, this was the mother. She clutched her chest as if every breath hurt, her gaze locked on Daniel. For a long heartbeat, neither moved. Daniel raised his hand, not in threat but in peace. He whispered softly, "It's all right. I have her. Your child is safe." His voice was steady, though his heart raced. The woman trembled, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak. But before she could, a branch cracked in the forest behind her. She gasped, turning quickly, and in a flash of pale light she was gone, vanished into the trees like smoke carried by wind. Daniel stood frozen. His mind raced. She had been so close, close enough for him to see the pain in her eyes, yet she had fled. Fear pushed her away. He looked around, but there was nothing, only silence and the whisper of leaves. Slowly, he returned to the house. Every step felt heavy. When he entered, the alien child stirred awake. Her big eyes blinked at him and she tried to sit up, though her body was still weak. Daniel knelt beside her. "It's all right," he said gently. "I saw her, your mother." The child's eyes filled with sudden light. She whispered a single word, broken but clear. "Mama." He nodded. "Yes, she's near. She's watching. She didn't leave you forever." He touched her hand, small and trembling. "But she's afraid." The child clung to his arm, as if begging him not to let go. Daniel felt his heart twist. The mother had abandoned her child, but not from hate. He had seen the truth in her eyes, desperation, not cruelty. She had left her baby at his door because she believed she could not keep her alive. That night, Daniel prepared more food from his supplies. He mashed the bread into the milk to make it easier for the child to eat. Every bite gave her a little more strength, and her color returned slightly. Though her ribs still showed, though her body still shook with weakness, there was hope now. As the fire glowed, Daniel could not stop thinking of the mother. She was out there, alone, hungry, maybe hunted, and yet she chose to watch from the shadows rather than step forward. Why? Was she afraid of him, or was she afraid of something else? Something darker, something chasing her. The child fell asleep again, but Daniel could not rest. He kept listening to the night outside. Sometimes he thought he heard faint footsteps beyond the trees. Sometimes he thought he saw two glowing eyes staring through the darkness. At one point, when the wind shifted, he even heard a whisper, so faint he almost believed it was his imagination, a voice carried by the night, soft and broken, saying only, "Forgive me." Daniel's blood ran cold. He stood quickly, stepping to the door, but the forest was silent again. Nothing moved except the branches swaying with the wind. He closed the door slowly, his jaw set. The child was safe, but the mother remained hidden. He knew now she would not come inside easily. She carried too much fear and shame. Still, he also knew she had not abandoned her daughter completely. She lingered near, torn between fleeing and staying. Daniel sat back by the fire, his eyes on. The small girl curled beneath his blanket. He whispered to himself, "If she is watching, she will see I mean no harm. She will see I will protect her child." Yet a dark thought crept into his mind. What if the mother was not hiding from him at all? What if something else in the forest was hunting her, and now, by taking in the child, he had drawn that same danger to his own door? Outside, in the cold shadows of the forest, the unseen eyes returned. But this time, they were not filled with sorrow alone. They burned with a warning, as if telling him that his choice had tied him to a story much larger than he could imagine. The morning sun touched the small house, painting the wooden walls in pale gold. Daniel had not slept again. His eyes were heavy, but his mind was awake, troubled by the memory of the mother's shadow in the forest. She had been there, watching, afraid and then gone. The child stirred beneath the blanket. Her silver skin seemed a little brighter now. Her large eyes opened slowly, blinking in the soft light. She looked around the room as if unsure where she was. When she saw Daniel, she gave a weak smile, small but real. Daniel returned the smile. "Good morning," he said gently, though his voice carried both warmth and worry. He handed her a bowl of warm milk. She held it with trembling hands, sipping carefully. Every drop seemed to give her a little more strength, but she was still far too thin, far too fragile. After a moment, she whispered. Her voice cracked, her words broken, yet Daniel could still understand. "Hun. Gry," she said. "Always. Hungry." The sound pierced his heart. He had known hunger in times of war, but this was different. This was a child who had never known comfort, who had never eaten enough to fill her small body. Daniel asked softly, "Where is your home?" She lowered her head, eyes wet with tears, and whispered again, "Gone. They push us. Away." The words were few, but they carried weight heavier than stone. He leaned closer. "Who pushed you away?" She hesitated, then whispered a word that made his blood run cold. "People. My people." Daniel sat back slowly, anger rising. In him, how could a people abandon their own child? He had seen cruelty before, but to cast away the weak, to starve them, was beyond his understanding. He clenched his fist, looking at the little girl who still tried to sip her milk with a smile. Her voice grew softer as if she was afraid to say more. "Mama, no food, no home. They laugh. They say, we die." She covered her face with her tiny hands, her shoulders shaking. Daniel moved closer, placing a hand gently on her back. "It's all right," he said. "You are safe now." His voice was steady, but inside he burned. If her mother had been forced to abandon her, it was not from cruelty. It was from hopelessness, from being cast out by those who should have cared. For the rest of the morning, Daniel tried to comfort her. He gave her bread soaked in milk. He told her small stories about the stars, hoping to ease her fear. Slowly, she began to relax. Sometimes she even laughed, a soft, fragile sound like music breaking through silence. But Daniel's mind was never at peace. Every laugh reminded him of what had been stolen from her. Every smile made him think of the mother hiding in the forest, alone, hungry, weak. She too must be suffering. If the child was starving, then the mother must have been worse. That evening, as the sky turned dark once more, Daniel stepped outside. The air was heavy with the smell of earth and pine. The forest stood quiet, shadows deep between the trees. He called out softly, "I know you are there. I saw you last night. Your child is safe. She is alive. She needs you." His words carried into the forest, but no answer came. Only the wind whispered back. Still, Daniel did not give up. "You don't need to hide from me," He continued, I will not harm you, I will not take her away. You are her mother. She needs you more than anyone. For a moment, he thought he saw movement, a flicker of pale light between branches. His heart raced, but the light vanished. As quickly as it appeared, when he returned inside, the child was awake. She looked at him with wide eyes. Mama, she whispered. He nodded. Yes, she's near. I called for her. The girl smiled weakly and lay down again, holding the blanket close. Later in the night, Daniel dozed in his chair, the fire burning low. Suddenly, he heard a faint sound, soft footsteps near the window. He opened his eyes quickly, his gaze shot to the shadows. There, just for a second, he saw her. The mother, thin and trembling, watching through the glass. Their eyes met. Daniel did not move. He only whispered, Come inside. Please, you don't have to stay out there. The mother's lips moved silently. Daniel thought he could read the words. Hungry? Forgive me. Then, before he could rise, she was gone again, swallowed by the forest. Daniel sat back, his jaw tight. The truth became clearer now. She had not abandoned her child out of cruelty. She had abandoned her child out of hunger. Out of desperation, her people had cast them both aside, and she had chosen death for herself if it meant even a chance of life for her daughter. The child stirred in her sleep, murmuring her mother's name. Daniel covered her gently with the blanket. His eyes burned with determination. He whispered to himself, If they will not help her, then I will. I will not let them suffer alone. The fire glowed brighter, filling the room with warmth, but outside, the forest seemed colder than ever. Somewhere among those shadows, the mother waited, starving and broken, and somewhere deeper still, hidden from his eyes, other dangers began to stir. The night was heavy with silence. Daniel sat by the fire. Again, his mind restless, he could not forget the glimpse of the mother at his window. Her thin body trembling, her lips whispering words of hunger and guilt. She was near, always near, yet too afraid to come inside. The child slept soundly now, her breathing soft, her small chest rising and falling. She had eaten more that day than perhaps in many weeks. Her skin glowed faintly, her strength returning little by little, but her dreams were restless, and sometimes she called out Mama in her sleep. Each time Daniel's heart tightened, he wanted to bring the mother inside, to end her fear, to unite them. Near midnight, Daniel heard the faintest sound at his door, a rustle, a soft scraping. He stood, quickly, careful not to wake the child. His hand rested on the door handle. He hesitated for a moment. Then he pulled it open. The cold air rushed in, and there she was, the mother, thin as a shadow, her eyes wide and glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn. She looked weaker than the child. Daniel could see the bones beneath her skin, yet her gaze burned with desperate love and shame. For a moment they only stared at each other. Daniel spoke softly. You came back? His words were calm, steady, not accusing. The mother's lips trembled, her voice cracked. I came to take her. She stepped forward, her body shaking. She is mine. I should not have left her. Daniel shook his head gently. You do not need to take her away. She is safe here. She is getting stronger. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, You don't understand. If they find out I left her here, they will kill us both. They already cast us out. They laugh at me. They call her cursed. Her voice broke into sobs. She lowered her head, covering her face. Daniel felt anger rise within him. So they would let a child starve? His voice was sharper now. They cast you aside for being weak? No one deserves that. The mother fell to her knees at the doorway, trembling. I am weak. I cannot feed her. I have nothing. That is why I left her. Better she live with a stranger than die with me. Her hands pressed to the floor as if she expected him to drive her away. But Daniel did not move to push her out. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice firm but kind. No, you are not weak. You carried her this far. You placed her at my door because you still had hope. That is not weakness. That is strength. The mother's shoulders shook. Tears streamed down her silver skin. She looked up at him, shocked by his words. You would let me stay? Daniel reached out his hand. Not just stay. You belong here with her. She needs you more than anyone. And you need her, too. For a long moment, the mother stared at his hand, trembling. Then slowly, with great hesitation, she placed her hand in his. Her skin was cold, her fingers fragile like glass. But in that moment, something shifted. The wall of fear around her heart began to break. Behind them, a small sound came from the room. The child had woken. She sat up, her eyes wide when she saw her mother. She cried out, "Mama!" and stumbled forward. Daniel quickly moved aside as the child rushed into her mother's arms. The mother clutched her daughter tightly, holding her as if afraid she would vanish again. She sobbed, whispering, "I am sorry. I am sorry." Over and over. The child clung to her, smiling through her own tears. Daniel stood back, watching quietly. His chest felt warm. He had seen many things in life, but few as powerful as the reunion of mother and child. It was raw, painful, and beautiful, all at once. After a long time, the mother looked at him, her face wet with tears. "They will come for us," she whispered. "If they know we are here, they will not stop. They hate me. They will hurt you too." Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not look away. "Then let them come," he said firmly. "I will not let them take you. I will not let them harm her." The mother's lips parted in shock. No one had ever spoken for her like that. No one had ever stood beside her. For the first time in her life, she felt she was not alone. The fire crackled softly. The child, still in her mother's arms, finally fell asleep again. Her small hand, clutching tightly at her mother's torn clothing, the mother held her close, rocking gently. Her eyes lifted to Daniel, filled with something new. Trust, fragile but real. But outside, the forest was not silent. In the distance, faint voices echoed, cruel laughter carried by the night wind. The mother's body stiffened. She whispered with fear, "They are coming." Daniel looked toward the dark trees, his eyes hard, his hand closed into a fist. He knew this peace would not last long. The village would not allow mercy. They would bring wrath to his door. Yet, as he looked back at the mother and her child, Daniel felt no fear, only resolve. He whispered to himself, "If they want to take them, they'll have to go through me." The next morning was tense. The mother sat quietly in the corner of the room, holding her child close. She had not slept, her eyes swollen from tears. Her body was weak, but her arms wrapped tightly around the little girl as if she feared losing her again. Daniel moved about the house, preparing food. His thoughts were sharp and restless. He remembered the faint voices in the forest last night, the cruel laughter that drifted on the wind. The mother's warning echoed in his head. They are coming. He knew it would not be long. The child ate slowly, nibbling on bread dipped in milk. Every bite gave her a little more strength. She smiled faintly at her mother, whispering softly, "Mama," and the woman's heart broke again with both sorrow and joy. Then, as the sun climbed higher, the peace shattered. Harsh voices echoed from the forest path. Daniel stepped outside and saw them. Several tall figures moving toward his house, their faces cruel, their eyes burning with scorn. Alien villagers, their silver skin glowing under the sunlight. Their laughter carried no kindness, only mockery. One of them shouted, "So the stories are true. The human shelters the cursed ones." Another sneered, "Look at him, keeping the weak alive." What a fool. Daniel stood firm at the door. His eyes narrowed, his voice calm but steady. "They are not cursed. They are starving, abandoned by you, and I will not hand them over." The leader stepped forward, tall and broad, his expression twisted with disgust. "You don't understand, human. That woman is nothing. She failed her duty. She could not feed her child. She is shame to our kind. We cast her out, and now you take her in. Do you think you can change what she is?" Daniel's jaw tightened, his fists clenched at his sides. I don't care what you think she is. I see a mother who loves her child. I see a little girl who deserves life. That is enough for me." The villagers laughed harshly, their voices cutting through the morning air. One spat on the ground. "You speak as if you know better than us, human. You do not belong here, and neither do they. Give them up or suffer the same fate." Inside the house, the mother trembled, clutching her child tighter. Her body shook with fear. She whispered, "They will kill us all. They have no mercy." Her eyes were wide with terror, but Daniel turned his head slightly and spoke firmly. "Stay inside. Don't be afraid." His voice carried strength, and though her fear remained, she felt a flicker of hope. The leader snarled, stepping closer. "Last chance, give them to us, and we will leave you in peace. Refuse, and you will regret standing against us." Daniel's eyes burned with defiance. "No," he said firmly, "I will never give them to you." For a moment, silence filled the air. Then the villagers roared with laughter. "The human thinks he is brave. He thinks his soft heart makes him strong." One mocked. Another sneered. "He will see soon what it means to defy us." But Daniel did not move. His body stood tall, his eyes unshaken. "Strength is not in cruelty," he said, his voice like steel. "Strength is in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That is something you will never understand." The villagers' laughter faded into anger. Their leader's face twisted with fury. "You dare insult us?" he shouted. "You dare defy our judgment?" His voice carried like thunder. Daniel did not flinch, his heart pounded, but his resolve was firm. Behind him he could hear the soft breathing of the child and the whispered prayers of her mother. He knew he could not fail them. Finally, the leader spat on the ground. "Very well, human. Keep them for now, but know this. You cannot protect them forever. We will return, and when we do, you will regret your choice." With that, the villagers turned, their glowing skin vanishing, back into the forest shadows. Their laughter echoed like poison, promising danger yet to come. Daniel stood at the doorway long after they were gone, his fists still clenched, his body trembling not from fear but from rage. He had seen their cruelty with his own eyes. He understood. Now this was not just about hunger. It was about pride, arrogance, and hate. They had cast out the weak because they could not bear to see their own flaws reflected. When he stepped back inside, the mother looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They will return with more. They will destroy us." Daniel shook his head, his voice calm but firm. "Then let them try. They will learn that a human heart does not break so easily." The child, sitting in her mother's lap, reached out her tiny hand toward Daniel. He took it gently, feeling the warmth of her fragile fingers. In that small touch, his resolve grew stronger. He would not abandon them, not now, not ever. The fire crackled softly, filling the room with light. But outside, the shadows of the forest grew darker. The villagers would return, and when they did, it would not be with words, but with wrath. The house was quiet after the villagers left, but the silence was heavy. The mother sat near the fire, her arms wrapped tightly around her child. Her body trembled as though the cold of fear would never leave her. Daniel stood near the door, his eyes sharp, his jaw set like stone. He knew the villagers would return, not with words, but with force. But for now, there was life inside the small house. The child's face looked brighter than before. Her laughter, soft and fragile, broke the silence. Daniel smiled faintly. It was proof that even in the face of cruelty, kindness could bring warmth. He spent the day repairing the house, strengthening the doors and windows. He brought in more wood, more food and water from the well. The mother watched him with wide eyes. Surprised by his determination, she whispered, "Why do you do this? Why risk yourself for us? We are not your kind." Daniel paused, looking at her directly. "Because you are alive, because no one deserves to be abandoned. Because strength is not in turning away, but in standing together." His voice was calm, but the weight of his words struck her heart. The mother lowered her eyes, her hands tightening around her child. She had never heard such words before, not from her people, not from anyone. As the day passed, Daniel showed the child how to eat properly, guiding her gently. He gave her small tasks, stacking wood pieces, folding blankets, so she could feel useful. She laughed more, her silver eyes glowing. For the first time, the mother saw her daughter acting like a child, not a starving shadow. Tears filled her eyes, she whispered, "I thought I had lost her. I thought I would watch her die." Daniel shook his head gently. "She will live, and so will you." That night, the villagers returned. Their glowing forms appeared in the forest, laughter echoing as they approached. Daniel stood outside waiting. His heart pounded, but his stance was strong. The leader sneered, "Still protecting the weak? You waste your time, human. They will die no matter what you do." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "No, they will live, because I will not let them die." His voice was steady, filled with steel. The villagers mocked him. One shouted, "You think your kindness makes you strong? It makes you foolish." Another laughed, "He feeds the useless, he builds shelter for the weak, he thinks he is better than us." But Daniel did not rise to their anger. Instead, he opened the door wide, letting the villagers see inside. They saw the child laughing as she held her mother's hand. They saw the mother, weak but alive, her eyes glowing with hope. The sight silenced them for a moment. Their laughter faltered, for in that room was proof. The child they had left to die was smiling, her body gaining strength. The mother, once broken, was slowly healing. Daniel's voice carried like fire. "Look at her. You left her to starve, you mocked her. But she is alive. She is stronger than your cruelty. And she will keep living, because I will not let your hate decide her fate." The leader growled, but his eyes flickered with doubt. He turned to his people. "It is nothing, do not be fooled, they are still weak, they will fall soon enough." Yet even as he spoke, his words sounded hollow. The villagers shifted uneasily. Some looked at the child again, confusion in their eyes. For the first time, they saw what kindness could do. They saw strength not in weapons or pride, but in love. Daniel stepped forward, his voice rising. "You think strength is in casting out the weak? You are wrong. Real strength is in protecting them. Real strength is in lifting them when they cannot stand. That is what makes us more than beasts." His words rang in the night air. The villagers stood in silence. Some turned away, unable to meet his eyes. Their leader spat on the ground, furious but shaken. "This is not over, human. You may win today, but we will not forget." They left, their glowing figures fading into the darkness. Their laughter did not follow this time, only silence, heavy and uncertain. Inside, the mother clutched her child, her eyes filled with tears. She looked at Daniel, whispering, "You stood against them, you made them doubt. No one has ever done that for me." Daniel nodded, his face calm but his heart burning. "It is not over, they may return, but we will face them together. You are not alone anymore." The child reached out her small hand, touching both her mother and Daniel. Her laughter filled the room again, stronger than before. It was proof of life, proof that kindness had power greater than cruelty. That night, as the fire burned bright, Daniel felt something he had not felt in years: hope, not just for the child, not just for the mother, but for the truth that even one human's heart could stand against a whole village's hate. But deep in the forest, anger still boiled. The villagers' pride had been shaken. Their wrath would not fade easily, and Daniel knew the true test was still to come. The days after the villagers' visit passed slowly, yet every hour carried weight. The mother remained tense, always expecting the sound of cruel voices outside the door. Every creak of wood or whisper of wind made her clutch her child tighter. The little girl, however, grew stronger. Her cheeks no longer hollow, her laughter brighter. She played with pieces of wood by the fire, stacking them clumsily into little towers. Daniel watched them quietly. He felt a sense of peace whenever he saw the child smile. Yet he also knew the villagers' threat was not gone. They had been shaken, but their pride would not allow them to leave forever. One evening, as the fire warmed the small house, the mother looked at Daniel. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the light. Her voice was soft but steady. "You risked your life for us. You stood against them. Why? We are nothing to you. Daniel shook his head slowly. You are not nothing. You are a mother who loves her child. That alone makes you worthy. And your daughter, she deserves to live. She deserves to know kindness. Tears filled the mother's eyes, she whispered. No one has ever spoken of us like that. To my people, we are shame, we are weakness, but you, she lowered her head. You see us as something more. Daniel's voice was firm but kind. Because you are more. You survived hunger. You survived rejection. You are stronger than they will ever understand. The child crawled into her mother's lap, her small hands clutching her mother's torn clothing. She looked at Daniel and whispered, "Family." The word was soft, but it carried weight. Daniel froze for a moment, then smiled. "Yes," he said gently. "Family." That night, the peace was broken once more. Harsh voices rose from the forest, torches glowing among the trees. The villagers had returned, this time with more. Their leader's voice thundered, "Human, enough of your foolishness, give them up or you will burn with them." The mother's body stiffened, fear flashing in her eyes. She whispered, "They will kill us all." Her arms tightened around her child. But Daniel stood, his face calm, his body steady. He opened the door, stepping into the cold night. The villagers spread before him, their glowing skin shimmering with anger. Their leader sneered, "This is your last chance." Daniel's voice was strong, unshaken. "No, you call them weak, but look at them. They live, they laugh, they grow stronger every day. That is strength. You think casting them out makes you powerful, but it only proves your cruelty." The villagers growled, their anger building. But some shifted uneasily. Their eyes flickered toward the small child peeking from the doorway. They could see her standing, alive, her hand clutching her mother's. The leader raised his hand as if to strike. But Daniel stepped forward, his voice cutting through the air like iron. "If you want them, you will have to go through me." The villagers froze, shocked by his defiance. His body was only one, but his presence stood like a wall of stone. His voice carried not just threat but truth. For the first time they felt shame. One of the younger villagers spoke softly. "She lives. The child lives." "How?" "We left her to die, yet she lives." His voice cracked. The others looked at one another, doubt growing in their eyes. Daniel pressed forward. "Yes, she lives. Because kindness is stronger than hate. Because one choice to protect is greater than 10 choices to destroy." The leader snarled, but the power in his voice faltered. His people no longer laughed. Some lowered their eyes, unwilling to meet Daniel's gaze. Slowly, one by one, they turned back into the forest, leaving their leader behind, his fury. Burned, but he could not stand alone. With a growl of rage, he too retreated, disappearing into the shadows. The night grew silent again. Daniel stood in the cold air, his chest rising and falling. When he returned inside, the mother looked at him with wide, tearful eyes. She whispered, "You faced them all and they left. You protected us when no one else would." Daniel knelt beside her, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. "You are safe now. They may return with words, but they will not break you again. Not while I stand." The child reached out, her tiny hand touching both of them, her voice soft but full of hope. "Together," she whispered. The word filled the room with warmth. The mother's tears fell freely, but this time they were not only of sorrow, they were tears of relief, of healing. She bowed her head, whispering, "I thought I was weak. I thought I had no strength left, but you gave me hope again. You gave my daughter life. For that I will never leave your side." Daniel smiled faintly, his eyes warm. "Then we are a family now, not by blood, but by choice. And sometimes that is stronger than anything." The fire crackled, filling the room with golden light. The mother held her child close. Daniel sat beside them. For the first time, none of them felt alone. Outside, the forest was silent. The threat had passed for now. The villagers' cruelty had been challenged, and though danger might return one day, something stronger had been born inside that small wooden house. Not weakness, not fear, but family, a new bond that even a village's wrath could not break.